Now listen to me. You don't want to be the devil's spokesman. Hello, I'm Eddie Lawrence. Here's today's devotional thought. In Mark 8:31, Jesus is teaching his disciples, and he begins to teach them that he must suffer many things and be rejected by the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes, and be killed, and then rise on the third day. And Mark says that he shared this with them openly. But then Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. Now, you and I both know that's not a good idea to start rebuking Jesus about anything. Well, Peter, he's a bold guy, and he loves Jesus. He pulls him aside and rebukes him. Now, Matthew's account of this tells us that Peter says, "Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you." Now, look at what's happening. Jesus is teaching them that I must suffer many things, be turned over, rejected, and killed, and rise on the third day. And Peter says, "This shall never happen to you." Jesus said, "This must happen." Peter says, "This shall never happen." Got ourselves a problem right there. You know what Jesus does? Now, Mark records a little insight. To be honest with you, when I was looking at this earlier this morning, I'd kind of leaped over it previously, but Mark said that after Peter pulled him aside and rebuked him, that Jesus turned and looked at the other disciples and then to Peter and says, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but of men." Wow. Now, do you remember just a few verses back, the last thing that was happening at Caesarea Philippi? Peter got one of those, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. God has spoken to you and you've heard him." But now it's, "Get behind me, Satan." You and I can be in a place where heaven's open and we're getting revelation and we know it's God. And then if we're not careful, our thinking gets skewed. And the next thing we know, we're becoming the devil's spokesman. Because Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan." So Peter didn't have the humility in this moment he should have had. Peter should have been paying attention to Jesus. Now, I believe Peter's intentions were good here. But his aim was off, and what he said was inspired by Satan. In other words, it didn't play into God's plan. He wasn't thinking in alignment with God's plan for Jesus. Sometimes you and we can have good intentions. You know, Peter may have been thinking, "Lord, I've seen you walk on water. You've turned water into wine. You speak to trees and they dry up, and all these different things. And this is not going to happen. You're having a bad day. Let me encourage you. This is not going to happen." But he was off. Sometimes we can have good intentions and think we're hearing from the Lord and we're speaking into somebody's life, but actually we're being used to the enemy to discourage them from what God has for them. Dear friend, we have to be careful when it comes to this kind of things, because Peter had allowed his pride to rise up. He had allowed that past win, that victory, I'm hearing from heaven, to get him to a place where he thinks he's hearing from heaven again, but he's not. He's hearing the whispers of hell. So let's not be the devil's spokesman. There's so much here. I may come back to it tomorrow. God bless you. Please pass this on to other folks. I really appreciate it when you help me get the word out. You have a blessed day. Let's listen to Jesus.